In this episode, I sit down and talk with John McNeal, owner of To Reveal, about many different things, including being a sort of translator between businesses and their audience. When it comes to marketing and advertising, business owners often struggle with this concept of telling the story of their product or brand. John calls this the curse of knowledge. They're often too close to their business to know what people really want to know and to be able to explain these things to them in a way that they actually understand. And that's where external creatives like John come in. So, let's go to the To Reveal office in downtown Columbus where I talk with John. All right, so to get started, can you tell us who you are and how you help people create business?
So my name is John McNeal. My company name is To Reveal, and we help businesses gain clarity around what they have to offer, and then we create animations that help them better sell what they do.
Nice. So what are some examples of kind of how you've kind of done that before with people, like the kind of projects that you do normally?
Yeah. So a lot of the companies I've worked with have been product-based, so they have something that they're trying to, sell more of. For example, there was a company here in Ohio on Mount Gilead. They sell an additive that goes into a diesel engine, and they say that this additive will fix 97% of the problems that you could have with a diesel engine. Their market is, truck drivers and whatnot. But they need to get the message out about, why is their product so good? And so what we did with them was to sit down and really understand what did they put into this, and why is it so good, and why would somebody need it? And then we were able to create an animation that helped them better tell that story. His previous way of kind of getting the message out was he would go on the radio, because he's trying to reach truckers. He would go on a radio program and he would answer these questions that truck drivers listen to. But he said, you know what, I want something else that's a little more visual, that's going to help them see exactly what this does and maybe explain it a little bit better.
Yeah. So whenever people come to you, do they kind of already have the idea picked out already, or do you sit down and try to kind of help them navigate in a way?
I think when they come to me, they know that they're somehow falling short.
Okay.
That's about as far as they've thought through it. They're saying we want to be here, but we're only here for some reason, and I'm not sure what that extra gap is. And they'll say, maybe you can help. Or they'll say, you know what, I saw a video that somebody else did and I thought it was really great. And it made me think maybe we should have a video, or maybe we should create an animation. I think they only think it through that far. They just know that they want more sales and what they're doing is not generating enough, and they kind of have maybe this is the right avenue to go, but they're not entirely certain how that all is going to pan out.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe a little difficult question here, but why do you think that what you do kind of helps people so much? So the idea of kind of visualization, being able to help them. So obviously these business owners or whoever they are, marketing companies maybe, they come to you with a goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And since you're still in business today, I would imagine that you do a pretty good job at it.
I hope so. Right.
But why do you think that it works?
So I think here's the thing. At least early on when we started creating these, and one of the things I want to say first off is I'm constantly learning and relearning. So the things that I know now, I can't say I necessarily knew a couple years ago that I didn't know of years before that. So for me, this is it's an evolving process. So our first animations we created probably 6 years ago that were more marketing focused or marketing driven. I kind of let the client lead, and they said, this is what I want, this is what I need. And I said, okay, well, yeah, let's put together an animation around that. And I let them kind of determine the flow of the animation. But then I've realized that I don't know that they fully understand, or they don't really know how to explain what they do in a way that's going to make sense to other people. So with that in mind, I then had to go back and say, you know what you need, but I don't know that you're the right person to kind of tell that story. So I had to kind of keep one foot in their world and one foot in their client's world, and just ask really kind of pointed questions to make them think through their issues and problems. And then we had to propose solutions to them, because the way that they were coming about it, it was entirely from their own perspective, and they weren't putting themselves in their client's shoes. And so I would say our first, maybe earlier animations, I think they were good. I think they were successful. I feel like what we've been doing more recently has been more successful, just because our role has now changed to let us look at this project from your client's perspective, as opposed to assuming that you already know what they need.
So you started kind of talking about it a little bit, and I want you to kind of elaborate a little bit more. So the talk that you did for Making Midwest, you kind of, you talked about a project that you did that was kind of, it seemed like maybe that was kind of a turning point for kind of how you treat projects.
Right.
Can you talk about that project a little bit?
Yeah. This is a client who came to us. They're just outside of Philadelphia. They, over the past maybe 5 to 6 years, have developed a technology which allows them to test for viruses and bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli. These typically take 24 to 48 hours. So let's say in the meat industry, they may take a sample while the meat's being processed, but then the meat continues to be shipped and packaged, and then it hits the grocery stores. And if they find out that this meat has been contaminated, that's where you see on the news, oh, we have to recall this because it's already in the store, but then 48 hours later, the results came back. So they developed a technology that said, we can do this in 5 minutes. And I think at least the first time around, the client said, here's the story, here's the market, we need to and he wrote the script. He's an attorney, he has a legal background. So he wrote the script, and he just said, we just need some visuals for it. So we took his lead. We had the script recorded, we put this animation together, and I think it all came together really well. But our assumption was that he understood and knew who he was targeting. And then a couple years later, they're still taking this technology to market, and when it sells, it will do very well. They will make a lot of money on this.
Yeah.
But I went back to him and I said, you know what? I think you're talking over the heads of the people you're trying to reach. And I gave him some examples, and I said, this whole thing of, the curse of knowledge, which says, you know so much about what you know that it's hard for you to dumb it down. I'd say dumb it down. It's hard for you to bring it down to a level that the average person can understand. It's almost like you geek out about what you know so much that you're still talking over everybody's heads. And when I pointed that out to him, he was like, oh my goodness, you're right. And then at that point he said, redo our material. And so we wrote a new script, we created a new animation, and the feedback from his board of directors, they were like, whoever created this, knocked the ball out of the park. They said this was really great. So we were able to take something that I thought was pretty good in the beginning and make it better, not just because the animation we created was that much better. It was just because we honed the message that much better. Right.
So now how did that kind of change things kind of moving forward for you?
I love that. I loved being able to, not only did I like being more involved in the problem solving process, when I realized I had more to offer than just, we're just going to create this animation. I love the strategy behind it. I love putting myself in their clients' shoes and saying, how would I want to receive this if they were selling this to me? And it just gave me, I feel like there was so much more value added than just being the hammer, here we've got all this stuff worked out. If I could do animation, I would create this for myself, but I can't. So here's all of our plans. Here, you make it work. Now I feel like I'm adding more value by being able to help them dig deeper into what is their true value that they bring to their clients. Yeah. And I love that. I love it.
I think so. Value is a good word there, and that kind of leads into the next question, which is kind of off of what you were just saying, where it's clients often have assumptions before they come to somebody like you or myself. Whenever they don't know, they tend to go to advertising agencies, because they're like, I have no idea. You tell me.
Right.
But it seems like that's kind of a really interesting shift that's happening with a lot of companies, like a lot of companies that were once considered just production companies. But one of the big values that I think is kind of not talked about very much is kind of the fight against that curse of knowledge, because we learn something new on every single project. So we are almost starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Is there anything you could say more to kind of that idea of like our value is also in kind of learning, like along the same,
So you're talking about learning through the creative process, or learning on behalf of the client, like
on behalf of the audience. You know what I mean? So we're obviously making something, not necessarily for clients, we're making them for the audience.
Right.
So the benefit of us, I guess, the benefit of having people like us in the process. It's not really a question, I guess.
No, I get it. It's so I don't have confidence that any company is able to pull themselves out of their world and then put themselves in their client's shoes very easily, right? So that's why you have these big brands that always hire somebody else to do the work. Now they could easily create their own team of people in-house. They might have a director of marketing or whatnot, but they choose to go to another company because I think they realize, like, we know what we know about our company, about our brand and everything else, but we really need to hire somebody else to help to make sure that we are packaging it in a way that makes sense to somebody outside. It's almost like it's like trying to take somebody who loves comic books and they just geek out about it. And if you ever have had a conversation with somebody who, or even music or something, and you have this conversation with them, and all of a sudden they just explode their geekdom on you, and you're just like, I'm not sure what you just said, but good for you. And I feel like a lot of the clients of a lot of the customers of my clients have that feeling. It's like, I'm not sure what you just said, but sounds pretty great for you. And I think for us, the learning process is learning who their customers really are and how they think and what they believe and what they want, and then being that go-between that's going to. It's almost like we're translators. It's somebody, your client is speaking one language and their customers are speaking another language, and we're the interpreter that's in between, that's going to create something that that makes sense, that they're going to say like, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I want that. That makes sense to me.
That's one of my favorite parts of every project is just talking to people that are just super passionate about like what it is that they do.
Right.
And like there's so many weird things in the world that like people love to do.
Yeah.
I maybe it's weird, but like I find it to be like one of the most special things. And for me it's trying to learn as much as you can about just something new all the time.
Right.
And it's like, even if it's like farming, like, I don't know, like it's really fun to just, people that specialize in these things, just talking to them and getting them to be all geeked out like that. And then at the same time, it's like just writing as much as you possibly can at the same time, because you're like, there's so much here, like, you want to try to translate that passion as well as the message as well. And
exactly.
it can definitely be difficult at times, but
but it's good. It's like I like when you like, and that's part of it too. Is like, you understand in the creative process, if you want to really help them connect with their audience, there's this really great moment when you ask the right question, and they answer it in full on geekdom, and I say that in the best way, right? Yeah. They get into it, and it's like you can tell it's almost like they're talking to you as if they were like presenting whatever their product is at like a convention or a conference or something, and you just get to like sit back and take it in, and it's like almost like for a moment they put aside their, let me say what the politically correct answers that you're looking for, and I'm just gonna hit you with whatever's inside of me, and it just comes out, and that's there's something really cool about that, just having that moment of, oh wow, yeah, you're really passionate about this.
Yeah,
you're really
that's one thing I've noticed anytime I talk to like startups, is like I'll say, all right, let's sit down and let's talk about what it is that you do and how you help people, and they immediately just show the presentation that they give, their pitch, right. And then they're done in like 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, are you done? Like, right. Let's get to the real stuff now. Right. Like, I want to talk about your audience.
That was cute. Let's get down to business.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what like a lot of times I have those conversations. It's like, we're going to talk for about 2 or 2.5 hours. I'm going to have to feed the meter at least once or twice during this conversation. So like, let's get that out of your system, and now let's talk real.
Right.
And that's for me, that's one of the really special parts, is the end of that conversation when they're like, oh man, like that was good. Like I said a lot of really good things. It's like, it's when you let loose and like kind of start saying the things that are really important.
Yeah, it's like a therapy session too.
It is,
right?
Absolutely.
Like it's all the stuff that's inside, and they're like, yes, I get to get this out, right?
Yeah,
that's good.
I would say 9 times out of 10, it's like at the end of that conversation, no, they're just like super happy and like, they're like, I just learned so much about my business. I'm like, I literally just asked you questions about your business. Like I didn't like do anything for you, but like starting the process right there, though, I feel like is really important and just really special to kind of start like that. Yeah,
and I think it's really great too to make them put into words what they're feeling. And, it's like we were just talking about the importance of like writing and journaling. And one of my favorite quotes about journaling is somebody says, I journal because I have to find a way to explain myself to myself.
Yeah.
And until somebody forces me to put something into words, sometimes I don't even know how I feel about it. And so asking those questions of your client, when you get, and it doesn't, they don't even have to be, you look at them and you're like, these aren't really mind-blowing questions, but if you ask the right questions, then it just makes them like, well, yeah, and then they tell a story or they tell an experience, or that passion that they have really comes out, and you realize, yes, that was the right question to ask.
Yeah, for sure.
It's good.
And it's also really good whenever, so a lot of people are kind of a little bit more intimidated by the whole committee thing, but it's like if you can have that conversation with everybody and let them kind of argue with each other sometimes, it's it's like, man, that's also really special. It's like when everybody gets on the same page. It, again, might take 2 or 3 hours, but like at the same time, it's like it's pretty rewarding just being there while they're kind of talking this stuff out amongst themselves. But
and it's even better. So like I know there are people who like they have a creative brief and they send a list of questions to their client, says answer these questions, and I don't think you can, like, at least for me personally, I don't know that the answers come out of that questionnaire. I want to ask the questions, but then let them, like, what comes out of their mouth kind of on the fly, I guess. Like, what do they say about this? And sometimes you can see, like, maybe something happens and it kind of makes them angry. Or I don't want the answer that they kind of sit back and, let me think about this for a day or two and then come back and calculate their answer. I want the like, when I ask this question, what emotion does this spark in you?
Yeah.
And so we did that with a client. There's probably 7 of them in the room, and they just sitting back and listening to them go back and forth about what they think is right or wrong, or what they need to change, and then like what product needs the most marketing, and they're pulling up numbers, and I just got to sit there and be a fly on the wall and just kind of take notes and write things down as they were like trying to hash out details. And And it's good too because then you can go back and say to them, I don't know if you heard yourself, but you said this. He's like, yeah, well, I meant it, you know, and then everybody else, that's another talking point. So I like that.
That's awesome, man.
It's good.
All right, so before you can help somebody, before you can help a business, what must they have already done?
I think before I can help them, I think they have to. I'm not so much I don't. So like I said before, I'm in this constant learning process, right? And I'm fine tuning how I kind of present my services to them. So there have been a few instances where somebody says, I responded to somebody on a forum, and they said, hey, I have these videos. I'm looking for somebody to create some videos for me, whatever. And I went to them and I said, your videos, they look pretty good, but I went through and I read your website. I looked at everything you've done, and I said, all of a sudden I said, your videos are not doing your actual work justice. And he said, I need to hire you. I need to hire you. Yeah. I said, if you'd love, I sent him a sample video. I said, here's something that we just created for a client. If you're interested in something like this, let me know. And so at least to some degree, at least for me at this stage, I think they have to have some sense of dissatisfaction with where they are.
Yeah.
I don't put that much confidence in myself to, or maybe I know myself better than I don't want to be the one who's like, I need to convince you that there's a problem here. If you don't think there's a problem, then I'm not going to waste my time there. Yeah. But if you feel like, hey, you know what? Wow, we were really trying to hit this mark in terms of sales, and we hit here, and I'm not really sure why, but we need to change something. Then I'm at a place where I can say, here's what could make a difference, right? So I guess that would be the first thing I would say is there has to be a dissatisfaction with where you are. If a company's like, we did pretty good last year, we're killing it, whatever else, that company's more likely to repeat their same strategy for the previous year, for the upcoming year, and that's not what. That's not, at least for me, what I'm who I'm wanting to work for. There has to be some pain that they're feeling, and if there's no pain, then there's no need to change anything. I think it's a really good point, and I think that's a problem with all businesses. Honestly, I think that everybody feels like they are the answer. Yeah. Because I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that you kind of have to say that to yourself. You know what I mean? Like you have to understand where your value is and that everybody can use your help. But at the same time, you need to kind of take a step back and be like, no, not everybody needs my help. Right. And it comes to that idea of, do they have a problem? And right. So I believe that things like video or animation or design, logo, branding, any sort of creative work, I honestly feel like it can make a difference financially in a company. Right. Absolutely. So for me, it's always trying to kind of talk to them in a way where it's like, do you agree with that? Like if you don't agree that something that I do for you can make a financial impact, then we shouldn't be working together. You know what I mean? Right. So it's like, because I'm not interested in just making something for you and then you put it out there and then you're like, right, I don't know what it's doing. Like I want to measure things, right? Like that's me. Like I'm super in the numbers, but it's like, if you're not dissatisfied enough with how things are currently going in your business, not necessarily just like your marketing, but like in business in general, it's like I love to kind of find my way through those things. Yeah, and there's something too. I feel like even in the creative world, somehow there's been this thing of like, if you're creative, you're somehow anti-numbers, and I think that is so wrong, because I think. At least for me, my background's in architecture. I've always feel like being in architecture is kind of a blend between, have an artist on one side and you have an engineer on the other, and I feel like the architect is kind of in the middle. So I'm part art, part math, and there's a side of me that, the strategy side of me that wants to play a little bit of a numbers game. And when somebody's like, I'm not coming in saying, well, if we just throw some more unicorns on this project. It'll all happen. I'm like, no, that's like businesses want something that's like measurable and quantifiable, right? And so you still have to be able to speak to the number side of it and say, so if I create a video or I create an animation for you that is going to bring in 3 new clients next year, and a new client for you is worth $35,000, right? Is that something that you'd be interested in? They're like, yeah, that would work. That'd be good. Yeah. It's like, okay, so that's going to be our goal here. We're going to create something that's going to generate, 3 new clients at $35,000 for you, right? And all of a sudden they can actually put some sort of measurables to that. And they'll say, well, how do you do that? And then we have a conversation there, right? So I think the idea that somehow being creative and not dealing with numbers, I think that if people have that still, I think that needs to be thrown out the window, right?
That could lead to a whole different conversation.
Yeah, totally.
And I'd love to do that sometime.
That would totally.
But like I always call myself just as much of like a scientist as a creative, because it's like, I love the idea of testing, and I love those numbers things too, where it's like, for me specifically, it's like physics. I love physics. Yeah. I've always done terrible at math, but physics is the one thing that made sense to me because it's real. I can visualize these things,
That's good.
But
I love math. I was awful in physics. I took physics in college, and those were some sad classes. So anyway, go on.
All right. So to kind of close this out, where can people learn more about you and To Reveal?
Yeah. So if you go to toreveal.com, that's our website. We have some samples of our work on there. You can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's John McNeal. I try to keep posting and stay active on social media, unless for some reason I feel like you're spammy and trying to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I accept connections from all over. And I'm working a lot on inbound marketing, so you'll see me posting more frequently on LinkedIn, just to help people try to get a sense of like who am I and who is our business and what do we stand for, and see if that is something that helps companies say like, hey, you know what, you might be the person that could help us, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing I also, if I can throw one more thing in here.
Yeah, let me make sure it's still going. Yeah, you're good.
Can I throw this in as a separate? One of the things that I love about in Columbus, in this community, is that, and I don't know that other communities have this. The creative community here is very open to helping each other. We're very open to, like, if I can't solve your problem, then somebody else, like, here's somebody who I would refer you to, or I can recommend you to. I think that's something that's really great about this industry. So I'm also interested in connecting with people just on the creative aspect for that reason. So if somebody says, I feel like the more that I know and the more people I know, the more that I can be a resource to my clients. Because if there's something that I can't do or something that I don't want to do, I want to be able to point my clients to somebody else who I can point them to. So that's just a side note. I love connecting with other creatives in that regard. So
that's great, man. All right, we're good. All right, good. So thank you so much. This has been a really great conversation that I know could go on for hours.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
Awesome.